Supersonic. 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 Sonic.
Hello everyone, and welcome to tonight's In Conversation with Big Brave, hosted by Jasmine Ketibuah-Foley. As Supersonic was founded and is led by women, one of our key aims is to be an inspiring space where women, trans and non-binary artists who are creating extraordinary new music are celebrated and recognised. So what an honour it is to be hosting this epic band this evening as part of our wider series of online talks amplifying female voices. As a new edition of this series, we begin exploring the notion of heaviness in creative practice, examining ideas of great force, intensity and turbulence within music and live performance. So to get you acquainted, tonight's panellists are Robin and Tazy, 2 out of 3 members that make up Big Brave. They create heavy, vast post-rock with minimalism, structural freedom and meticulous timing that forms the cornerstone of their precise rhythmical sound. The band formed in 2012, originally writing subtle, ambient, minimalistic folk songs, but after an incident where an acoustic guitar broke, the electric guitar became the permanent replacement, bringing with it larger amps and a mass of amplitude. It became clear that the loud volume would become just as effective as the lowest possible ones, and the juxtaposition of both would become something of a signature sound for Big Brave. Their new album, Vital, was released on Southern Lord Records back in April, so we highly recommend you go and check it out. And to get you warmed up before the talk, we'll screen for you now their music video, Half Breed, from the new album. Big Brave describes the video as the action of shoveling dirt onto another person. It's an act to discredit, shame and discriminate the individual, with the victim on screen being painfully covered with dirt by the perpetrator off screen. All we have to witness is the damage done and left behind. We are aware of what is happening, what has happened, but the source is kept anonymous and can easily be missed and overlooked. Soak this all in, folks, and we'll see you soon.
for the history, the pattern for the history, the pattern for the pattern for the pattern for the pattern for
Supersonic. 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 Sonic.
Hi, my name is Jazz. I'm a journalist and creative in Bristol, and I'm the host for the Supersonic discussion. So thank you so much for joining us today. If you can, please don't forget to donate to show your support. These conversations are free to watch, but we do ask that if you are in a position to do so, please do contribute what you can afford. Your donations will help to secure the future work of the Supersonic team and will enable us to support the artists we host and our freelance team as well. So yeah, do donate if you can. Supersonic was founded and is led by women, and one of its key aims is to be an inspiring space where women, trans and non-binary artists who are creating extraordinary new music are celebrated and recognised for what they do. Now, despite some positive trends, gender disparity is still a major concern across the wider music industry. So for this new series of talks, we are excited to partner once again with Swamp Booking as we continue our series of online talks that amplify the voices and experiences of women, trans and non-binary artists. We'll be exploring how to create a better working environment and a more cohesive scene, sharing wider perspectives firsthand, also whilst focusing on specific topics such as the notion of heaviness in creative practice. And with this in mind, I'm really super excited to be joined by Robin and Tacy from the Montreal trio Big Brave. I hope I said your name right.
You're close enough. Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us. And just so we can help people get to know you a bit more who might not have heard of you guys before, it'll be really interesting to know how you all met each other. How did Big Brave even start in its very, very early beginnings?
So basically what happened was, I'll go from the very beginning. I needed a place to live, and this apartment that I was going to rent fell through because heavy note here, the guy that I was supposed to move in with got arrested for some terrible thing. It's actually for very, very like horrendous acts of violence towards sex workers. And I was supposed to move in with this guy. And so I was like scrambling. And I had met Mathieu our guitarist a few times, and I heard that he had a room available with his buddy, and I was like, it was like last minute. It was 2 weeks before I was supposed to move, and he was like, yeah, the room's still available. And then, being roommates, I learned about him and that he had been playing music since he was basically a teenager, since he was like 13 or something. And he learned that I had just taught myself how to play the guitar. Play the guitar, meaning like I knew 3 chords. And he was like, you probably can sing. Can you sing? Everyone can sing. And I'm like, sure, I'll try. And then I did. And then we would just jam in our living room with a bunch of friends. And then we developed like this like really quiet ambient folk trio. And there are a few incarnations of that trio, with Matsir and I being the core members. And then Matsir broke the acoustic guitar by accident that I was playing, and it was my chance to and I'm like, oh darn, now I get to borrow my friend's electric guitar and see where that goes. And Louis had been a friend of Matsir's for, our old drummer Louis had been a friend of Matsir's for years, through music, and then Big Brave was born from that. And then Louis's life got, his personal life got bigger, and more important. Granted, he has a kid. He just wanted more stability. And this guy, I had already known for a couple of years at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah. We met on, did we meet on the internet?
No, but
No.
The first time was when Amy brought us to the bar.
Okay.
Otherwise you had, yeah.
Okay, right. So we knew mutual people. We had mutual friends, and then they brought us together. Well, Amy brought us together.
Yeah.
And then I learned that we like jammed at one point. I learned that you played music, and then in jamming, and then in getting to watch her perform in like her other projects, I was like, oh, you're like a real musician. Like everything she touched, she was just like doing it all, like, and I'm like, oh hot damn. And she played the drums, and I was like, oh my god. So when Louis left, we had to hire a drummer for our previous album, A Gaze Among Them, and then, but we were still looking for a drummer, and I was like, hey Tessie, would you like want to maybe try out for like doing drums for a tour? You know, no worries if not.
I feel like I just like fell onto you when you asked me. I was like, yeah.
I know, I was so happy. I was like, yes. And then that sort of came from that.
Yeah.
And you said there as well that you went from being in like a folk group into Big Brave. I mean, what was that transition like, and has elements of that still remained in your music?
I think absolutely it has, because there were some concepts from the more ambient folk incarnation of the band that were transferred onto Big Brave, and which were of minimalism, and ambience, like creating atmosphere. But then Big Brave sort of, we honed in on other concepts like we really focused on minimalism and space and tension, while trying to develop a soundscape as intricate sounding and interesting enough and dynamic enough with very minimal instrumentation, like 2 guitars and a drum kit, and that was it, kind of thing.
And I know from other interviews that you've done, you've spoken a lot about how experimentation has been really important within your practice? And you mentioned when you started it was all pretty like jammy, you know, you all just kind of like vibing off each other as well. So I'd really like to know what role experimentation continues to have in your creative process. Is it still part of it? Is it part of the live performance still, or is it just there in the writing process and in the background?
I think it's definite. I think it's the biggest part of our process, of especially the writing process, because I still have moments, and Matsur does too, and Tessie does too, where we're when we're sort of like noodling and just trying to figure out the sound of each of our thing. Like Tessie might be tuning her drums. I might just try to figure out how loud I am in relation to the other two. And then there's like some happy accidents that happen, where I remember for Vital, actually, that like big monstrous thing
for half breed.
Yeah. That was an accident, but it was because I was like, oh, I like what I'm doing on the guitar. Maybe I can figure something out where I can amplify that in a way. And it became uncontrollable, but then I figured out how to control it. And
I feel like a lot of it is like experimenting with the instrument itself, and then an added layer of how it can all combine into one weird loud sound.
yeah like Matsur too, coming from the background he does, he like if something makes an interesting sound, he just like focuses on it, and he's like, ooh, what's this? Could we use this somehow? And there's is it in? No, which one is it in?
What are you talking about?
Saw blade.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's a saw blade sound in the album, and it just brings out this perfect.
Oh yeah, Vital.
Oh, it's in Vital. Okay. But a lot of it is experimentation. Live though, it's a little bit different because everything's pretty structured already, and the looseness kind of comes in with regards to like how big our set is. Maybe we could like stretch out a part, or but I would say that's that.
Do you feel like when you go from live to writing music, is anything lost in that process? Because it sounds like that experimentation is really like a really fun part of the music making for you all. And obviously if that's not part of the live performance, then I'm wondering maybe if that's just got a completely different vibe for you.
Oh, interesting. I don't know if it's lost, because because every venue is different. So the sound is different, and whatever sound engineer we're working with, they also have different ways of helping our sound project into the space. Hopefully they understand what we're trying to convey and can work with that. So like with regards to experimentation specifically, Matsur and I, for example, depending on the positions of the amps and our guitars and our cabs, like we actually kind of have to figure out where to position ourselves to get those specific feedback sounds, or and to still control them, because they can be super uncontrollable. And if they go out of control, there is an element of surprise and kind of fun too, because like if you get a sense of what your guitar does in a certain position in relation to the amp and cab, you can do more or do less. So yeah, there's a little bit of an experimentation, but I don't think it's lost. I think actually the experimentation, no. Yeah. Sorry.
Recording and performing are two very different spaces to be in musically. So yeah, I completely understand that. You were both talking about the track Half Breed, which is on your new album, which is amazing. And I wanted to ask you, Robin, a question, because the music relating to that track, specifically Half Breed, you know, that the music, your music, is a space where you're comfortable to explore your identity. And I wanted to know if that's like deliberate and if that's really important to you to make sure that's part of the music.
It is deliberate. It's deliberate because it's the only way, other than, you know, personal writings that I do, it's the only way I can express these things with words. Before Vital, I was very shy about it and a little insecure about, not quite shy and quite insecure and apprehensive about being so explicit about talking about identity and the sort of issues that I've experienced and I've witnessed people close to me experience, and so I would hide these things in metaphors. But then with Vital, I found a sense of assurance, assuredness,
assurance,
assuredness, not stability or assurance, or it felt okay, rather very basically, it felt okay for me to be explicit, especially considering what's been in sort of mainstream news media now, and that these topics that and issues that, you know, in private we would talk about is now part of the general consciousness. And so I felt like I actually am able to take up some space now and feel like they wouldn't necessarily fall on deaf ears. Yeah, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes total sense.
Yeah. Okay.
When you have the finished product of these songs and you've put so much of yourself into them, does that make you feel vulnerable? I must imagine it must make you feel vulnerable, but maybe empowering at the same time.
Yeah, 1,000% both. Very vulnerable, because especially before Vital, I was so afraid of people finding out what it is exactly I'm trying to convey and exposing me without me being ready to hold that, right?
Right. So then now you're offering that up instead of it. Yeah.
Instead of other people being like, actually, I've noticed, like, I'm not ready yet. Yeah. But it is 1,000% vulnerable making, but 1,000% empowering too, because of the conversations that I've had since the release of even just the single Half Breed before the album came out. I got DM'd, I got with people just reaching out about being mixed race, and just being like, yes, thank you. Even getting to talk to you more about it too. And that's empowering. Like, that feels, it's its own kind of special, it's its own kind of, it's empowering because there are other hearts and souls behind it, and there's something about the more people that you kind of accidentally collect under the same under the same sort of issue that feel and think the same way, you're just like, whoa, it like gives me shivers. Even if they're like across the globe,
Right.
you know.
You feel it too?
Yeah, I know the road. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think I mean, the world's a very different place, like especially now, you know, it's like the anniversary of the horrible death of George Floyd, and people have a lot more language now to talk about race relations and racism and identity and all of that stuff. So yeah, it's a very interesting time, important time to talk about this stuff as well. Absolutely.
Yeah, you make a very good point too about people have the language now to speak on these things. And I think that was also one of my biggest issues, is that I didn't, with regards to being explicit versus hiding in metaphors, I never really felt like I had the language to describe what it is I was experiencing. I could only use similes, basically. It's kind of like this. Yeah. And like make it as poetic.
Yeah. Let's put it in a poem.
You know?
Yeah.
And I think having the language helps so much. It not only helps you know, the people outside certain issues to start talking amongst themselves about things, but more specifically, it helps the people inside them, the ones that are experiencing them, to confidently and concisely express something that is so complex and gray, and the spectrum of thought and emotion is almost infinite, you know? So it's, yeah, you're absolutely right. I think that is one of the things that helped as well.
Well, with all of that taken into account, do you think that having your identity and everything that comes with it, and the experimentation in the music as well, does this all add to your sense of heaviness within the music? Not just the sound, but just the feeling behind the songwriting?
I would say, yeah.
Yeah, it kind of is impossible for that not to be just so inherent in the whole world that we make.
Yeah. It's kind of like, it's also a little bit of an accident because, or not an accident, it's like, it kind of made sense because I am the word writer in the band. And so I am also a big feeler, and you know, throughout all of the incarnations of this band, or the two anyway, they've always had such trust in whatever it was that I wanted to say and how I wanted to say it. And it was great because it was quite freeing. So I could be heavy, I could be super emotional, I could be super intellectual too if I wanted. And sometimes when in performing too, there are moments where I do tear up because I'm really feeling the weight of what it is that I am yelling or singing, and backed up by the heaviness of the music. It's so cathartic. Mm-hmm. So it's like, I really don't think we could have one without the other.
Because I feel like all of that is really powering like these like full body experiences playing the music, mm-hmm. which then feeds back into feeling that. And then you're just like, it's just like, yeah. It just like feels huge.
Yeah.
Do you think do you see the reaction from the audience as well when you're at like the height of that moment of like feeling the heaviness inside you, hearing it in the lyrics and the music and the sounds? Like, is there a point where it gets to like its height, I guess, where you can see the audience like reacting to that?
There are moments sometimes, yes. It depends. If we're like opening for like a big headliner, for example, no one cares. Like maybe a few people are like, yeah, I dig it. But if it's like a small show and we are like co-headlining or headlining or whatever, that, and it's clear that people are, if they've never heard of us, might have heard a little bit and have come to see us. And then there are people that know us, you can tell, like, you can tell. But also we're very insular when we're on stage.
Yeah.
It's rare to kind of look out. I do, but I do because of where the mic is positioned. And in moments I can see. I also am afraid to see. Because, but yes, there are moments of that where it's just the whole room.
Yeah, you can.
It.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, not necessarily see it, but feel it, I think.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And also, you guys are both like facing your amps a lot and playing.
Yeah, that is true.
And I'm just like watching you guys. I'm like, whoa, cool.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, with that, it's interesting you say about how you feel quite, you're in your own world, I guess, on stage. Like the audience could possibly just not be there. You're just doing your thing. You know, you're in your zone. And
Yeah.
I'm wondering, do you think that is another element of the weight that the performance that your band does brings to the stage?
I think so. I mean, how could it not, right? Because it's like so clear that I mean, granted, it's hard to have perspective, but what I've gleaned from what people have mentioned, there is something about, because we're each of us are going at it so hard. Like there's not a single performance where we half-ass it, so to speak, because we can't, but also it's just not in our nature to. Like we're just in it, and we're in it together. And whoops.
What?
Nope, I lost my train of thought.
What? We're all in it together. And
no, because then I was thinking what the question that you asked earlier, if when we feel the audience too, I'm thinking like, actually, we haven't played a show together where we haven't felt the audience in it with us. Mm-hmm. Because I think if they weren't, that's palpable.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
I mean, at the very least, we have their attention, because it's not the easiest to listen to our music.
Yeah, it's also hard to talk over.
Yes. And in our quiet parts too, when people are talking, it's like, oh, you think so, eh?
Well, I'll definitely talk a bit more about just the sound dynamics in your music, because I think that's a really important part of the heaviness within your sound. But let's just talk quickly about Half Breed again, just because I was interested to know a bit more about what inspired it, because I know that the lyrics in it are excerpts from Alexander Chee's book of essays. So can you just explain why you chose those lyrics for that track?
Yeah, okay, so it was actually this person I was dating who introduced me to Alexander Chee, and she lent me this book, and she's also mixed race, and we kind of got to talk a little bit about that. But then upon reading that one particular excerpt, I actually started to cry, because like we were talking about before, having the vocabulary, the language to express something, that you felt your whole life but never really been able to articulate it. It was so perfectly articulated. Granted, the context is a little bit different in his essay, but it's the same because he's also mixed race. But I just remember reading it and rereading it and like not dying inside, but like just it was like something was shed and then I had something new and perfect and just I literally got everyone around me to read it. And then I would talk at them about it for so long. Because I've never been able to so eloquently describe this experience of being mixed race. And there it is, so beautifully. And then to come across this as an adult too, there is a little bit of grief that is felt because of all of those moments of tension when my race was an issue or a topic of conversation, not like randomly, and even not randomly, quite deliberately, not because I instigated it. It was always other people instigating it. I kind of wish that I could say something like this, being like, actually, I don't even know, but so now it's there. and it kind of gives me a little bit of something to lean on, because I was like, there's one other person. I can count on this. I can count on this person that I don't even know to share this experience separately, but together. And then same with Tussie being mixed race too. It was like, oh yeah, there it is. And I knew I needed to do something with it. I knew that I was like, if it wasn't going to be with Big Brave, maybe I'll do like a single solo thing or something, or a collaboration with someone else, but I wanted to implement it into song somehow. And then it never really quite felt right until we started writing this album. And then it was like, all right, perfect. I actually had to simplify the lyrics a bit to insert it into what we were doing for musically for this song. So, but it is verbatim in the liner notes. Yeah, and then getting to sing these words or yell them, backed up by this crazy, heavy, weird music. Oh my gosh. I could feel them more than anything, you know? So to like take in something intellectually and feel it emotionally, but then to manifest it outward again in a different way, it was like I had to. Yeah.
Are there any, for anyone that hasn't heard the track, is there like a line from the track in the lyrics that really reflects on this deep connection that you've had to that book?
That's a good question. We have them here because I don't know them by heart. It's kind of hard to say, because it's all exactly. You could just read that. I could just read the whole thing because it really, I can't hold. It's 2 sentences, really. So it's like the pattern for the history of half-breeds hidden in every culture, which I loved because we are hidden and there is a pattern. Historically, we are allowed neither the privileges of the ruling class which I was like, yep. Neither nor the community of those who are ruled, which I've experienced as well, in many different forms. To each side that disowns us, we represent everything the other does not have. I think this sentence more, we survive only if we are valued, and are valued only for strength or beauty, sometimes for intelligence or cunning. And I think that is the most poignant line, actually, because it's true. I've only ever experienced when people receive me first by race, they size me up first, and they're like, oh, you're mixed race, or you're like of this race that I think you are. You must be, I don't know, whatever stereotype that they have. And then I literally have had like a group of guys come up to me being like, you're pretty, but you can't be that smart. So we wanted to talk to you and ask you this question. And then they asked me some stupid question, and I was like, I answered it, and they're like, yeah, okay, yeah, you're smart too. So, no, I'm not kidding you.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Oh, you look, people were so certain that I have had, that I'm like that I am a certain very specific race, and I have to argue with them kind of thing. It's like, no, I'm not. And like, are you sure you really look like this person? Look, let me show you. And it looks nothing like me. but yeah, it's kind of maddening. It's a private maddening in a way. Yeah.
Well, I'm wondering if because that sense of identity within the lyrics and the creativity, is that the heaviest part of your music, would you say? Or is it when it's all put out there in the performance, is that more of like the heaviest moment for you?
I think it's in the performance. I think there's no real, the best way to like to fully feel, or rather appreciate, the weight of what we're doing is to experience it live. And it is when we play live that we really experience what it was that we worked so hard on fully, because it's all together and it's all there in that one moment in real time. And every experience is a bit different, but like every performance is different. Thus every experience in performing it is different, but I think it is,
having that as a moment to like fully understand it in its complexity and in like a whole context, and then you can kind of get out of it and you're like, oh yeah, I remembered, I like understand it, or I know it, but then you like get to experience it all together.
Yeah, and then you understand more sometimes.
Yeah,
like
totally.
There are moments where I was like, oh, this part, I never really gave it much thought until performing it night after night. And
especially because when we are performing it, and because the three of us just like really love each other, that you're just like already on this kind of connection level with us, which it just kind of opens up, like then you're able to like actually feel more of it.
Yes.
Sometimes it's quite hard to like vocalize, and when it comes to like emotional feelings for music, it's something that there shouldn't be words for it anyway, so it's really hard to vocalize, isn't it? It's really hard.
There are no words for it, don't worry about it.
It's a feeling.
Yeah.
Well, with the feeling of your music, as we were talking about earlier, the loud bits and the quiet bits, it's really something to just listen to as a whole package, just because it makes the loudness louder and the quiet bits even quieter. And I just wanted to know for you both what it's like to perform that on stage, and if that's part of it, if it feels like it's part of the weight of your music as well.
I think so. I think the dynamics really lend itself to the core, the weight, the feeling. I think because it can be delicate, like even the transitions can be delicate, because it's not easy going from these lighter touches to something as heavy and in your face kind of thing, like with emotion. And I feel that there are moments of fragility and vulnerability and strength and power, and it comes in waves. And yeah, I definitely think that without it, it wouldn't, the feelings wouldn't necessarily translate as well. Like if we were all for 40 minutes the entire time, it would be like heavy, but it's just like a heavy.
Yeah, you don't get, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, and like, and then when you're performing it and even listening to it, but like once you come out of these like really intense moments, and you're really just like, you can like kind of hear your own breath in a way, and you're like kind of catching up with yourself and like understanding what just happened kind of thing. And then you're like, especially with me, because I feel like I'm like always like keeping time with my like body and my breath kind of thing. And then you just kind of like sit there and you're like, oh, okay. And then, you know, you're going to go into a heavy part again. And then you just kind of like deep breath, hold it. And then it's just like, and then it's expelled kind of thing. So I feel like it really lends to like keeping in tune with yourself in a weird way.
That is very true. Very apt. Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah.
Just like, yeah, a self-awareness in it.
Yeah. No, that is so true. Because like I'm trying to think too, what it would be like to receive that and to feel that as a spectator / listener. Like I imagine too that after a moment of heaviness, to have that like almost release of quietness, and which can build tension as well, and then the release of going back into something heavy, like I feel like that would also be like, oh, like a way to catch one's breath as well.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It almost sounds like you have more of a meditative experience on stage then, where you're talking about being so connected to your breath and being like very insular and in the moment. It's like you're manifesting some kind of like noisy, quiet, meditative space.
Yep, I think you're exactly right. And especially because what helps too is that the rhythms are kind of, how do you say, not, well, they can be, I've heard people say like trance-like, but I think it's because of the continuous steady-ish rhythm, and how pared down it is. It's not always
yeah, it's not like a beat that you're going with,
right.
Kind of
It's not that you can like jive to. It's actually like, it's very purposeful, deliberate.
Mm-hmm.
I think that you're right, because most of the time when we're performing, there are moments where I would look up and like Tussie and I, we catch our eyes and we're like, oh right,
Yeah.
we're doing this.
Yeah. I just kind of start like laughing a little, and then I'm like, oh no.
Yeah, being like, no, okay, get back into.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think there is, because I, especially after a performance, I feel quite loose.
Yeah, right. It's never, we don't usually feel like, oh, but like, what about this part that we like, whatever, melodically, did I fuck this up, whatever. It's just like, no, we just like feel like we've just done what we've just done,
yeah
there's not a lot of room to like think about that.
Wicked. Well, I've read a couple of previous interviews you've done, and I've seen that you've mentioned a couple of times that there's still not enough women in the heavy music scene, and I'm really keen to know what your band's experience has been like in the scene, as people who identify as women as well. Like, what has that been like for you, and what can be done to change that imbalance?
I know that when we first started, like when we first got signed to Southern Ward, I was the only like female identifying person there in every show. And it was rare to find other women even in the audience. I counted the first 2 years of performance where I shared the stage with less than a handful of women or female identified, or even non-binary, or trans. Like it was just, and they were all white. So I remember being exhausted after each tour, because I didn't have space. And it's not that it wasn't, what I mean by space is that when you enter a room and there's no one that you feel like you have an affinity to, like you have some kind of connection that you can be like, oh, there's someone that like I can connect with, even if you don't talk, just sharing a space with a like-bodied person. There's nothing like it, especially being in a space when you are the only one that looks like you. Like, yes, this is very superficial, but it's not, though, because there's a fundamental understanding that these white men don't have, that others do. To put it, one example, and this is so basic and whatever, but it's like using the bathroom was such a fucking torturous thing for me, because there were, and maybe this can be like a good window into what I'm trying to convey, but there's this venue in the States called St. Vitus. Fucking love that venue. Oops, sorry, I'm swearing. Is that okay? Okay.
Yeah, it's fine.
My mom's gonna watch this. I just realized. It is like a pillar in the heavy music scene and in the punk rock scene. Like it's one of those venues where you're like, oh, I can't believe I'm playing there. It's like a privilege to get to play there. But you walk in and I'm like, oh, I can tell that I will have to carve out a space for me to sit and kind of like be. And that was usually adjacent to the merch table or a little corner in the green room where I could or actually the only place in those years up until recently, and kind of still now, is the van or the car that we were touring in. And then using the bathroom, it's disgusting. Like I couldn't it was like, for people that get to pee standing up, they don't understand what it means to sit down on your piss and to walk in your piss and to have to do things that doesn't require a zit, zit, the. You know, like, we have a lot more movement. We have a lot more space we need to take up to do a simple thing. And then even more if we're squatting, you know, like, it stinks. And anyway, that I would like to use as a window into what that was like. And then sometimes if there were gendered bathrooms, I was really happy because I was one of the only women using the women's bathroom, which means that was also a place of kind of solace. And then more and more it's changing, which I'm so grateful for, especially in recent years. And now it's less and less female vocalist, female fronted band, female drummer, kind of thing. And it's just, you still get it, but and less and less white male promoters promoting all women bills.
Yeah.
Which it's like, yeah,
Whoa, what is up with that?
yeah, like, just put on a show. Like, it's not a novelty. Like, we're not novelty items. Like, you can't, you know, like, great, good, but also I think there's a way to work around this, which is, to answer the second part of your question, is making a concerted effort not to book the usual bands. Like, I think it starts with venues and promoters. I think they need to do a little more research than just accepting emails and being like, yes, no, see how many likes, what kind of pull they'll have. Like, I think it's, yeah, granted, it's hard, they need to make money, whatever, but the artists don't make the money the promoters make, for example. Artists barely get any money. Anyway, that's a whole other rant. But yeah, I think promoters need to make more of a concerted effort and talk to people about how to bill, how to, like, promote the bill, for example. Just have a show with bands that are good, that I don't know. Have you thought about it?
I don't know. I feel like it just takes, like,
Time to.
yeah, and, like, yeah, it just takes more people doing it, which is just, like, really, like, it's kind of a hard thing to ask too, just given the context of what it actually means to be involved in it, because it's not like, oh yeah, sure, I'll just do that and things will be fine. It's like, I don't know. And I feel like I'm glad that there's, like, two of us in a band kind of thing, because it's just, like, the inherent, like, that connection that you're trying to find in the room, like, we'll just have it already.
It changed my life touring, having Tussie in the band, like, just already, because I don't have to explain myself and justify certain feelings and behaviors.
Yeah, and, like, yeah, feelings of safety, and yeah.
Right? You can walk into a room and that's another thing. You walk into a venue. I never felt safe. Never. Yeah, I was like, nope.
Plotting your escape routes or, like, whatever.
For real. Yeah. And not to say that, you know, everyone in the venue is a predator, but there is a dichotomy. There is, with regards to how women feel in the world, especially surrounded by men, there is a huge difference. It's without even understanding that we're doing this at such a young age, we are taught / we learn how to size up a man and decipher whether or not they are trustworthy. And it is every single male body that you come across, like men that you come across in the street, walking down the street.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah. Those, like, you have to make those really quick judgments, like whether you're conscious of it or not.
Yeah, yeah. So it's like, so I remember, like, there were I don't know. I know that, I mean, I do this anyway though, because there are times where I'm just like, the guy over there kind of thing, and then you'd be like, oh, okay, kind of. And it, I don't know, there's no, I don't have to justify, I don't have to explain, it's just understood. And there's a relief in that.
Yeah. And then like with like festivals, like what you're doing, and like just like we are the only ones that are gonna include ourselves, like, I mean, like,
Right?
Yeah, so we just got to do it then.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and just support each other that way.
Yeah.
So,
and just keep going. Yeah.
Well, we're the time has literally just like crept up on us. We're coming up really closely to the end. I just wanted to quickly get in there. If you can like sum up what it was like to work with the body in like a sentence, what would that be?
Pizza, so much
pizza, food, Netflix, and Guinness. They don't drink, so well.
That was just us.
Yeah, that was just us actually. No, but it was actually like a lot of fun, a lot of work, because we've never written an album in studio before. So it was kind of like, how do you do that? What do you do?
And especially a collab with these amazing other artists.
Yeah. But yeah, it was.
Yeah, it's a very unexpected sound that we.
Yes. Very different. People are going to be surprised.
Wicked. I'm excited. Well, for people who have just joined us at the end of the talk, you've missed amazing talk and panel discussion. But if you go back, you can watch it again if you want to. And check out Half Breed's album Vital. We've been talking about a track called Half Breed in it. It is amazing. Go listen to it, go buy it. You will have a great time listening to it. But I wanna thank you for joining us tonight, both of you, and also everybody else who's been watching as well. You've been incredible guests, and again, do check out Big Brave's album, and don't forget to donate to Supersonic if you can, and do stay with us here for more Supersonic treats. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So that's all, folks. That was totally brilliant. Join us now and please give a giant cyberspace applause to tonight's participants, Robin, Tazy and Jazz. And a massive thank you to all of you at home tuning in out there. So thank you. We hope you enjoyed that as much as we did. We'll be taking a break from this series over the summer, but don't worry, we have a super special lineup planned for autumn 2021. But in the meantime, make sure to check out all the previous In Conversations here on our YouTube channel, alongside the very healthy Supersonic Festival footage archive. We've got a treat for everyone in there. We also have a real-life in-person gig with the legendary Godspeed You Black Emperor in January 2022. And have been rescheduled for May 2022 also. So make sure to head to our website www.supersonicfestival.com to book your tickets for that. So we just want to say thanks again, folks. Take care, and we'll see you again soon. Supersonic over and out.